Welcome back to the channel, guys. I've got a real good one for you today. I'm actually here with a good friend here I had just met. His name is Nino.
Yeah.
We're going to go over some good healthcare plans for you guys here today. Again, HMOs like we have back in the States, and also just your critical needs as well. Again, to my champions, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys. If you're not a champion, hit that subscribe button. Let me know I'm doing a good job for you guys. I'm going to jump right into this, Mr. Nino here.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself to the camera.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Nino. So I think you call your subscribers champions, right?
Yes.
So, hi, champions. I'm Nino Sumampong. I'm a financial advisor and unit manager with Insular Life. I'm based here in Cebu, but I can also cater to clients nationwide, right? So I do everything from insurance to investment. But I think for today, we wanted to focus more on the healthcare plans,
yes,
right, that is available here in the Philippines and what would suit best for different kinds of folks, right?
Yes. Like I said, most of my subscribers are going to be from the ages of, say, 50 to 70.
Yeah.
So again, that being America. So they're looking at plans over here because a lot of them come over here and they may have already existing healthcare needs or actually have existing problems that they're going to be addressing when they get here. Is that an issue with any of your plans?
No, that's not going to be an issue in terms of our plans, but because it's an insurance company, we're taking a lot of risk. That's what we're doing here, right? But it's very important for us to also understand that sometimes that, especially with the catastrophic one, the critical illness that we're about to discuss, having a medical history will not really hinder you from getting a plan, but will add steps to it, right?
Okay.
Because the company needs to validate, of course, of how much risk we're gonna be accepting, right? We're gonna be covering you, how much we should cover you, right? But for the HMO, I think it's much quicker, it's much easier because they're less stricter compared to insurance companies. So for the HMO, it's more open, more accessible to everybody. For medical insurance, if you have a medical history, just expect added steps or added requirements for you to get that, right? But more or less, still accessible.
All right, we spoke about this, but how did you get started in the insurance industry?
All right, so my story with the insurance industry is I started back when I was 18 years old. So I graduated in Silliman University back in Dumaguete. And then right after graduation, I told my parents, I told my family, hey, give me 2 years. 2 years of just let me work on something. And then whether I go rich or I go broke, I'll go back to work, right? I go back to school. Because, here in the Philippines, it's very sort of a stereotypical Asian family thinking of you need a degree, you need a college degree, right? So I told my family, give me 2 years, and then that's when I started into the industry. My mom has been with Insular Life for 17 years now, right?
So a long period of time.
Yeah, a long period of time. So I've seen her work. I've been working under her in a way, sort of like an apprenticeship. And then now, when I was of legal age, I took the license exam. I have 2 licenses, and I can offer both of those things. And enjoying the work. And now, just because I just got promoted, so I'm more focused on building a team and really growing the business, helping more people.
Now, for my champions out there, are there any issues on getting foreigners benefits through your company?
So, for foreigners, especially with Insular Life, from what I know, all we really need is an ACR, an Alien
ACR
Certificate Registration, ACR, and an advice would be, if you do think of this as a long-term stay, to have some sort of permanent visa. Right?
Okay.
Because having a permanent visa will help you with the approval process with the company, right? Because if you don't have a permanent visa, there will, again, going back, might be more requirements or more questions that you have to answer.
Okay, now I'll give you me for example.
Yeah.
I am 55, retired here for good.
Yeah.
I do not have like the SRRV yet. I don't have any type of special visa right now. I do live off of my passport, in which they allow here in your country, they allow 3 years on your passport. And again, I renew every 2 months. Would that be an issue for me getting coverage through your company?
Not really an issue, but that's something that I can negotiate in your behalf, because we basically just have to prove to the company that this client will be staying here for the long term, right? Because the company also cares about the client, especially with the claims, right? So if the client, for example, one of my clients who often travel a lot, but is living here in Cebu for good, has a business here in Cebu, but we understand that because he doesn't have that permanent visa, we had to justify to the company that he's staying here long term. Because when I talked with the head of the company, he told me that we're just as concerned for the client, because what if the emergency happens outside of the Philippines, can we effectively give that money to him? That might be a problem.
Okay.
But if he's staying here for the long term, it's much easier because we can just give the money here in the Philippines much quicker.
All right, so today we're going to discuss some plans here. We spoke briefly about it before I started the video.
Yeah.
But give me, I know one of them like the HMO, one's for critical.
Yeah.
Go in more depth about those two plans so we can actually, so the people out there can actually see what they're getting for their money.
Yeah, for sure. So here in the Philippines, most commonly, we offer two kinds of health insurances. We have what we call the HMO, which we discussed, and also the critical illness ones, right?
Okay.
Critical illness coverage, right? It's good to have both because there are some things that you enjoy in the HMO that you won't be able to enjoy with critical illness, but there are also benefits in critical illness which you won't be able to enjoy if you only have HMO, right? So the best way to explain things for me is I always use sample scenarios, right? Use cases. So for example, if an HMO is really good for short-term needs. So for example, what if you just have a fever, you have a headache that's been bothering you, or maybe like a minor accident, like you fell off a motorcycle or something, right?
Okay.
For HMOs can cover that, right? Your emergency cases, your surgeries, certain illnesses, it covers that, right? The HMO, the Insular Life or whatever HMO company you go through pays for that on your behalf, right?
Now, is the insured, do you have to pay anything out of pocket once he's in the hospital? Does he have to pay anything out of pocket for this? Any of the cares? Is it all covered under the insurance company to a certain amount?
Okay, so here in the Philippines, what I've noticed with HMOs, especially when you get it for individuals, not for companies, is that we have usually a 1 year waiting period to cover pre-existing conditions.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, one of my clients has diabetes, right? So he would get an HMO, but for the first year of his HMO coverage, if there's any complications due to diabetes, it won't be covered.
Okay, so say a guy comes over here like myself.
Yeah.
I have no pre-existing except for I have high blood pressure and I have a high eye pressure. Say I get a COVID, for example.
Yeah.
You know, it's coming back in the United States.
Yeah,
if I got COVID, what do I pay out of pocket when I go to see a doctor?
For COVID, what I know, it's like 100% covered, right?
Okay.
Because it's not counted as a pre-existing coverage, like a pre-existing condition, right?
Correct.
So if you go for example, for COVID and you go to the hospital, then the insurance company pays for everything.
So do I pay in advance, then you guys reimburse me, or do you guys pay directly to the hospital?
We pay directly to the hospital.
Okay, so you actually get involved and you actually work with the hospitals one-on-one and take care of that in the background where I don't have to deal with it.
So someone from the HMO company here in the Philippines, they will always ask you, I think the same for the States, do you have insurance?
Yes.
Right? So when you say yes, you mention your provider, whether that's Insular or other places, right? So you mention, yes, I do have an HMO, and then they will continue the process with you, and then someone from the hospital will already be tasked of contacting the insurance company and saying, hey, for example, for you, hey, Britt's here, this is what he's coming here for, this is his, these are the surgeries or tests that we're going to be doing on him, will we be paid for this? And then the discussion will be between the two of them already. So for you, you're already taken care of.
Now, I talked to you briefly about this before we started the video again. Tell my champions a little bit about the history of your company. How long has it been around?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so for Insular Life, we're quite proud because we're a fully Filipino-owned company, right? It has been in the industry for 115 years. Now it's the first and largest Filipino company in the Philippines. And we've been around for 115 years. We've been established since 1910, right? So we're very proud of the 115 because, frankly speaking, there are other companies, especially international ones, who may be older than 115 years, right? But those 115 years, we're quite proud of it because that is 115 years of uninterrupted, unbroken service. During World War II, we stayed open. We were giving out claims. During Yolanda incident, for those who are familiar with it, very, very tragic incident, we were the first office to open after Yolanda, right? So a lot of people there, they would see other insurance companies, and then the insurance company office would say, hi, we're open, go to Cebu office. And these are people who were ravaged by a typhoon. They don't have money, they don't have funds. Some of them don't have IDs to go to Cebu, right?
They lost everything.
Yeah, they lost everything. You know? So what Insular Life did is we really invested into bringing that office back to operational. We even had lawyers help us create affidavits to really help the people get their insurance claims. And then, so yeah, we're very proud of the 115 years because we really stayed open and we're very committed to our clients.
Okay. Now, as far as the HMO plan, we briefly went over this before. I looked at the plan, I think it was 250,000 pesos of coverage.
Yeah.
Is that per incident or is that per year you're allowed to have?
Good question. The 250,000 is actually per incident or per illness. That's what we call here.
Okay.
Right? So because it's per illness, it doesn't mean it's consumable for a year, right? So for example, let's say, what if the client goes to the hospital for a fever and then gets admitted because there's a complication from the fever.
Yeah.
Let's say you pay let's say the hospital bill was 100,000, to make it easier to imagine, right? 100,000. So your 250 now has less 100,000, right?
Okay.
But now what happens if after 3 months later or something within the same year, let's say, again, the example of falling off a motorbike, because if you're here in the Philippines, some places, if you travel, you really have to go for like the motorcycles, right? Because
Yes.
it's easier. So what if a small accident happens from there, or maybe even a major one, like a fracture, might happen. So does that mean I only have 150,000 left for the year? No, you have another 250,000 for that specific incident.
Okay, and for today's purposes, I'm actually going to give my my age and my numbers to him,
Yeah.
and we're going to go discuss that HMO pricing with you. So again, we pulled that up earlier. He's
Yeah.
going to give you guys a brief summary of the cost to me if I were to pay for an HMO plan.
Yeah. So for Sir Britt's case, with insurance companies here, and I don't know if it's similar to the US, it's really all about age, right? Because
Yes.
that's a one way we calculate the risk. No? So for example, for someone like Sir Britt who's currently at age 55, no? So for the HMO, the one that we discussed a while ago, there's 4 options here in the Philippines that you need to take note, because knowing those 4 options is actually helpful for those people. Because if you're coming here, for example, if you're planning to just stay in Cebu the whole time, then it might be smart to just go for the Visayas access or the Vismin access, right?
Okay.
Meaning you're only covered if you go to a hospital here in Visayas or Mindanao.
Okay.
Right? But if you're the type like Sir Britt here who travels a lot nationwide, then it's smarter to go for the nationwide access. So that if something happens, let's say in Manila, at least you're still covered there.
Okay.
Right? So for example, for the nationwide access for Sir Britt, we're looking at for the 250,000 pesos one. I hope you can help me with the conversion, because I'm not as quick in terms of those things. But for example, where we're looking at roughly like $1,000 or plus, that's 66,000 pesos a year for 250,000 per illness coverage.
Okay, so that's
right?
about $1,100
Yes.
per year for 250,000 pesos
Yeah.
per incident.
Yeah.
And again, I'm actually looking at the screen here. That's for what they call a suite, which means that you actually get your private room for that price.
Yes.
If you want to go down in categories, you can actually get a private room, which is only
49,000.
49,000. You can get a semi-private, probably you and another person. You're looking at 38,000, and you're looking at a ward.
Yeah.
It's 31,555. So again, you can see the difference in pricing there. And again, I don't have the conversion rate right here in front of me. I don't want to break out my calculator every single time I do these conversion rates for you. It's 58 pesos per dollar. Again, but I will put that on the screen and show you guys the numbers as far as pricing.
Yeah.
Okay, so for this particular plan, it covers basically everything you're saying.
Yeah.
How about if you need preventative care? For any, say I want to go get my yearly checkup.
Yeah.
Is that covered by this insurance plan?
Yes, so for this insurance plan specifically, and I think for most HMOs here in the Philippines, we have what we call our free APE, or free annual physical examination. So that's already a part of the pricing that you see here. You get a free annual physical once a year during your coverage. So
Okay.
that APE already covers the usual blood works, some for x-rays, depending on how comprehensive that coverage is, and it's already for free.
Okay.
Right? So it's good.
Do we have access to like any online services, like to find a doctor that's like, I'm guessing you guys have a network of some kind?
Mhm. So it's fairly easy. It's for Insular Life, because that's the only company that I know. If you don't mind me plugging them in for a while, I am partnered with what we call an HMO broker. It's also smart to go through them. Like for example, shout out to Ultima Insurance, because with brokers they can give you that eagle eye view of all the HMOs and then give you different pricing and then different benefits. But for this case, because I'm connected with Insular Life, I'm gonna focus on Insular. So for Insular Life, we do cover, what was the question again? Sorry.
Again, we're talking about like, is there like a network that I have to stay within to get coverage for these different things?
So for that, we do have what we call our HMO. We have an app for HMOs.
Okay.
And then we also have a website where, for example, here in Cebu, the very major ones are Chongwa Mandaue, we have CDU, UCMed. Those are the usual big hospitals here in Cebu. That's already covered. And even smaller clinics and even provincial ones are covered. So if you want to find a specific hospital or you want to know like specific doctors, it's already there on the list in the app. You can just check. You can just check in the app. There's like a filter. I'm in Cebu. I'm looking for this kind of facility and looking for this kind of doctor, and then you can already contact and book your consultation from there.
All right, now for all my viewers out there, if you had to pick a hospital here in Cebu City, which hospital would you choose and why?
For me, that's a question for me. For me, I'm happy I don't get sick a lot, but we try to stay healthy, right? But I think here in Cebu, it's very quite well known. It's actually, I think Chongwa is very well known here in Cebu, right?
Yes.
Chongwa is, a lot of my clients, I tell them, where do you go? Chongwa, right? So Chongwa is quite good because especially with their new facility in Mandaue, I heard that they're really getting their standards up, trying to get more certifications. And, in the medical industry, it's a good way for you to gauge if a hospital is doing well, if they're certified. So yeah, I think Chongwa, and I believe maybe Cebu Doctors is a good pick.
Okay, and just to go back a little bit, just to clarify, we're talking about 250,000 pesos of coverage. If you want to go up to 500,000 pesos of coverage, he told me briefly, you could actually take the number of $1,100 US per year, and you could double that to $2,200 US dollars per year, and that would give you coverage. On your plans, do you have to pay in advance for the full year? Can you do every 6 months? Can you do every month? How do you guys do paying?
So for Insular Life, again, maybe there are other options with other HMOs or when you go through a broker. But for us here at Insular Life, what we have is we have a semi-annual option. So you can pay every 6 months for the 66,000. So that's like 30,000 every 6 months. Or you have the option to pay for the whole amount through your credit card, 0% interest, 6 months installment, or pay for the year. Before, we had the quarterly, but the company decided to not continue with that anymore. So there's only two options, either semi-annual or fully pay for the whole year.
Okay, so again, just briefly to discuss, the HMO basically just covers everything.
Yeah.
For any time you go to the hospital, for any type of reasons, go to the doctor for any kind of reason, it covers everything. Now again, now we're going to talk about the other plan you have as far as critical illness. This would cover things like?
Things like, for example, cancer, heart attack, stroke, maybe even Alzheimer's, maybe like heart surgery, right? So it's a very, very long list. For example, for the one that I'm planning to discuss here with Sir Britt, or what I'm introducing to all of you, is what we call resilience, right? It's the name of the plan. So for resilience, we cover 123 different critical illnesses.
123 different ones.
Both major and minor critical illnesses. And that's important to take note because there are other critical illnesses out there that are maybe cheaper, more accessible, but you have to take note that you have to ask if it also covers minor, right? Because usually those only cover for major ones, right?
Correct.
So minor ones could be something like fracture, stuff like that, right? But if you go for a company that only covers for major, then that might not be covered. So take note of that when you're talking to an advisor, right? So do you want me to go through?
Yes, let's get a kind of an idea of a pricing here for somebody, again, my age.
Yeah, sure.
Again, I don't have any pre-existing, but again, just kind of gives them a ballpark where to look. As far as figures, my age is pretty similar to what they're coming here for.
It's a good median.
Correct, good median.
Right? Yeah. So for this one, I'm just gonna I'm gonna start with like a 1 million coverage. So that at least you can use this as a baseline. If you want thinking, I want a bigger one or a smaller one, at least you can use the 1 million as a benchmark, right?
1 million pesos in coverage.
1 million pesos in coverage, right? So for this one in resilience, our first benefit is what we call the major critical illness claim. So for the major critical illness, if there's any diagnosis of a major critical illness, again, going back, the very common ones here are stroke, cancer, heart attack. It is a very, very long list, and I'm not medically knowledgeable enough to explain everything, right? But more or less, when there's a major diagnosis, then you get 1 million in cash. That's not a reimbursement. That's not like, Nino, my bill in the hospital is only $500,000. No, we give you 1 million, and you decide what you want to do with it.
Okay.
Right? And then we have what we call our minor critical illness claim, which is 25% of your base coverage. So in this case, 1 million, that's 250,000 pesos. So if there's a diagnosis for minor critical illness, you can get again 250,000 pesos in cash or deposited to your account, and you can use with that what you want with that money, but hopefully for treatment, right? And you can claim that twice. So technically speaking, you're covered for 500,000, and that's on top of your 1 million, right?
Okay.
And then we have what we call our in-shape cash bonus, because a lot of my clients will tell me, "Nins, what if I'm healthy forever? I'm just paying you for nothing," no? Right?
Correct.
But for this one, we have what we call our in-shape cash bonus, which is 8% of your coverage. So if you have 2 million, that might be 160,000 pesos. For this one, for the 1 million, it's 80,000 pesos. So meaning starting at age 50, at age 60, 65, every 5 years, starting at that age, you will get 80,000 pesos if you stay healthy. Right? For example, Sir Britt here, he's very healthy, I think he's very active as well with his travels. So if he's healthy, for example, at age 60, he will receive 80,000 pesos for staying healthy. At age 85, if he's still healthy, no claims, another 80,000, right? But once you have a claim, then there's no more 80 the next 5 years, right?
Okay, next 5 years, okay.
Yeah. And then what we also have a hospitalization allowance benefit. So that's 2,500 pesos per day, right?
If you're like in the hospital for long term.
Yes.
Okay.
But you must be admitted due to critical illness. So it's not like HMO where, I'm here for for a bruise, or I'm here because my arm got broken. That's not gonna be counted.
What about COVID?
COVID is only when it gets into a critical stage, the COVID.
So like where you need to be on oxygen, for example.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I got what you're saying.
But I think if you have the HMO, then even the mild ones, it gets covered by the HMO, right? For this one, if you go, usually when you have critical illness, you do stay in the hospital for a long time, right? So for example, for that, if you stayed in the hospital for 10 days, then you are entitled to receiving 25,000 pesos in allowance. Right, so this isn't a literal like I visit Sir Britt, here's 2.5 every day, right? So we look at how long you stayed in the hospital, your discharge. So for example, if you stayed there again for 10 days, then at the end of the 10 days, you will receive 25,000 pesos.
Okay.
Right. And then you have what we call late stage cancer benefit. So if you have cancer, so you claimed your 1 million already, right? But what if that cancer goes into stage 4? Then you have another additional 150,000 pesos that you will receive.
Okay.
Right? And then lastly is what we have, the critical illness buyback. So for the critical illness buyback is you already claimed your 1 million from the major. I think the easiest way to explain this is through a sample scenario, if you don't mind. So for example, let's say a client comes in. Unfortunately, the client gets like a critical illness diagnosis, like a major one, let's say cancer, right? So the client, because he's entitled to 1 million in benefits, will receive 1 million pesos, and then he can use that for his treatment and everything, right? But after 2 years, there's a 2-year waiting period. After 2 years, what if, unfortunately, the client gets either of the three, cancer, heart attack, or stroke, right? So either of the three. So if, for example, what if after 2 years, the client gets a stroke, for example, then that client will receive another 1 million pesos for that one. But again, it needs to be 2 years after the major diagnosis, and you need to claim that one first.
Okay, what would be the price for me for that plan?
Yeah, for the price for that plan, which covers you again very comprehensive from minor to major.
Yes.
And then of course the hospitalization benefit. Then for this one, at someone at Sir Britt's age, that will only cost him 92,800 pesos a year. So that's less than $20,000 if I'm not mistaken, right?
So you take 92,000 pesos, you divide by 58 pesos per dollar.
Yeah.
So again, I will put that number on the screen to show you guys the price per year for that plan as well.
Yeah, and for this plan, it's actually, it's also flexible because there's a monthly option if you want to do that. There's a quarterly option, a semi-annual option, and a annual option.
So you don't have to pay all up front.
Yes, you don't have to pay for it all up front. If you want to pay just good for 3 months, that's quarterly, that's good. You can also pay for that.
Anything you should tell my champions out there regarding anything as far as insurance when they come over here to the Philippines?
Yeah.
Anything important you think that they need to be aware of when they come over here as foreigners? Anything they need to be aware of?
Okay. So for this one here, and this is, I want to put a disclaimer that this is a personal opinion of mine. But I do think, for example, if you stay here in the Philippines for a long time, or if you're looking at it, like for example, for Sir Britt, that he really is planning to retire here, live here, right? We talked a while ago that he feels like home here, which is, as a Filipino, I'm happy, right? But that's smart to get insurance. No, that's the first thing. The second thing is, for me, and this is something I tell even to my non-foreigner clients, here in the Philippines, there's a lot of us insurance advisors. There's a lot of us here,
Yes.
right? But it's important for you to look at two things. First of all is you look at the company, right? Make sure that the company that you're going to be dealing with is a company that fulfills its promises, a company that's strong in their financials and can really commit to that promise, right? Because that's what we're doing here. We're giving you a promise.
115 years of service here, guys.
Yeah, 115 years of service, right? And then lastly is to make sure that you're dealing with the right advisor.
Okay.
Right? Because it's very, very possible for a person to have two clients of the same company, but the other one is happier and the other one is not. Why is that? Because I don't know how it works in America, but here in the Philippines, you go through an advisor. You don't go directly to the company. So you go through someone like me. And my advice is very crucial to the client because, you know, we're the ones who understand the products of the company. So if we give you the potentially wrong advice or bad advice, that's gonna be something that will affect you, right? Yep. So here in the Philippines, a lot of people shop for different insurance companies, but something that I advocate for is to shop for insurance advisors. And I'm not saying that I'm the best out there, but I tell my clients, hey, put me in that criteria, put me in that table, compare me with someone else. I don't mind.
You're very knowledgeable to me. I mean,
thank you. Right? I try my best. No? I'm certified. I'm a registered financial planner. I'm a estate and trust planner as well. Right? So trying my best to get better as an advisor because in the end, it's really our advice that will translate into the product.
Yes.
Right? So someone who you believe you can have a great transaction with, someone who you see sees your best interest at heart. Because honestly speaking, all insurance companies, yes, there's differences, but more or less offer sort of the same things. But it's the differentiator is the advisor that you're talking with. Right.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for coming on the channel today. Thanks for all the great information.
Right.
I'm sure my champions are appreciating you and all the knowledge you gave them today.
Yeah.
And again, to my champions, you're much appreciated. Thank you so much. If you're not a champion, hit that subscribe button. Let me know I'm doing a good job for you guys. Till next time, I love the Philippines.
Woo.